Welcome, everyone, to Coffee with a Codex. My name is Dot Porter. I am a curator in the Kislak Center for Special Collections, Rare Books and Manuscripts at the University of Pennsylvania Libraries. I split my time with the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies. This is a research and development institute in the Kislak Center. We focus on manuscript studies, physical manuscripts, digitized manuscripts, where those two things meet. And Coffee with a Codex is my weekly 30-minute show and tell where I get a book off the shelf and just give you all a chance to take a quick look at some of the things that we have in our collection here. So I want to take a minute. I want to welcome Amy back. Amy Hutchins is our manuscript cataloger. She is co-hosting today. And she hasn't been gone. She just hasn't been able to make it for a few weeks. And so I'm just really happy that she's back with us, and she will be in the chat and I will be in the chat. So if you have any questions or things to say as I go along, go ahead and put them in and we will answer them as we see them. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with this one. So this is MS Codex 1572. And this is a gradual, being the book that was used for the Mass in the church. And so it has a lot of chants mostly, and prayers and all kinds of things. And we'll walk through and take a look at some of the different things that this manuscript has for us. It has been localized, or we know where it was made. So it was made in Brixen, now Bressanone. I think it's called Bressanone, which was, I think, at one time in southern Germany, and today it's in Italy. So it's in this area right between where Germany and Italy meet. And as you can maybe tell from the cover, just from looking at it, like there's a whole lot going on. It's a really interesting, manuscript. So I want to start by just looking at the cover, since it's right here and it's so obvious. So it is leather over boards, and it has been like heavily used. So the leather has worn away, which is great for us because this means that now we can see the boards and sort of how it was put together. The board has also been sort of broken, so it's in two pieces. It's slightly bent. I don't know if you can see, if I turn it sort of sideways, you can see how it's not flat anymore. And it looks like maybe it was two pieces that were put together, or maybe this is somebody tried to fix it. But there are these things here where and you can see here, there's actually still this sort of wooden piece that was put in, and there were metal pieces. Like they tried to make it flat and it wouldn't go flat. And here this is part of what is, well, used to be, because obviously the cover is off, but this is where the text block was attached to the boards. So if we take a quick look here at the text block, this is quite a thick little book. I'm going to turn it sideways. You can see that here are the quires, and they've been sewn together, and there are leather or maybe some other kind of strap that were here. And so it was sewn onto a strap, and then the straps, which are now broken, but they would have been fed through the edges. You can sort of see here, through the edges here, and then tacked in. And that's how the boards in this case were attached to the text block was attached to the boards. It's how the whole book was put together. And at one point, there also would have been a spine. So the leather would have covered all of this. And you can see it also on the back. More of the leather has been worn away, but here you can see also the boards are broken on the back. There was also these metal sort of bosses here that would have helped keep sort of ironically, were to keep the leather from being worn, because when you set it on the table, the metal bosses would hold the leather up above the table so it wouldn't get worn, but it hasn't helped because it's still really, this got a lot of use. And we'll see also when we look inside how much use this one got. I'm going to try to, again, get this a little bit further away. I don't want to be too far away, but here we go. Oh, all right. Maybe that's a little better. There we go. All right. So the book is in a few different sections. I'm just going to take this off and move it. There is some interesting stuff happening on the paste down, both on the front and the back. So we'll take a look at this pretty quickly. The paste down is a sort of sheet, and it's part of the binding. It's just a sheet that's literally pasted onto the board at the front. And in this case, this is the front paste down. It includes some prayers. It's got the Credo, the Gloria, the Da Pacem, and the Domine written. The writing that is dated to about 1400. And I did not tell you, but this manuscript that we're looking at, the main manuscript, is from between 1300 and 1325. So this manuscript here is 14th, sort of early 14th century, but the paste down was made later, about maybe 100 years later, maybe not quite that much later. So this was added at some point later on. It could be that if one of the possibilities is that this manuscript was written for a monastic house that was in this area. And so if it was actively being used, which it appeared that it was, perhaps around 1400, they decided they needed a place to have these particular prayers at the ready. And so they pasted it in this book that they were using all the time anyway. I think that's one possible way that it got there. Other things that are happening here, we have sort of owners' stamps, or not stamps, but book plates from previous owners. We don't know a whole lot about who owned this manuscript before. I'm just going to take a quick glance again at the provenance. So it was owned by this person whose plate this is, Frederick Arthur Haygate Lambert of Garrett's Hall. You can see that here, and that was in Surrey in England. And then there is an inscription somewhere that's dated 1880. So 1880, this is a long time after, 1300. So it's not really clear how it got to him. And then Penn bought it in 2010. So it's sort of unclear how it got where, but there we are. Let me go back. Here we go. So we have our front flyleaf, which was originally one of the last couple of leaves from the manuscript. So when we get to the end, we'll see that there's another leaf that looks like this one at the end. And so at some point, this was moved to sort of act as a flyleaf. So we start with this kind of nice large initial. So we start with the temporal and sanctoral masses. And I remember a few weeks ago, we looked at another, I think it was another gradual actually, at the masses. So these are the masses that cover the temporal masses are the masses, I believe, that go through the church year, and then the sanctoral masses focus on particular saints. So temporal and sanctoral. So we start here, and this is also where our first scribe starts. So this manuscript has at least 4 hands in it. So our first scribe starts here. They are writing, they have square notation in the musical notation is these square notes, so called because the notes are shaped like little squares, and an Italian Gothic script. So this is where we go through, and this is the finest initial that we're going to see, but there are some other sort of pretty things going on. There's going to be a little bit more color So we've got this sort of yellow infill here. And this is very much generally what it looks like. So we have one mass after another here. Here's some, oh, you can't really, let me move this over a little bit. Here we go. So you can see over here, there's a little bit of a drawing in that initial there. Here we go to the end of our first choir. We have the start of another mass. Each mass is identified here, and I'm going to point out some of them because they're important for locating the manuscript or for other reasons. A couple of things just to see down here at the bottom, there's a number. This is a very good thing to have. This is a signature number, which is basically telling us that this is the second choir. So this is 2, this is the second choir. We can see that there's a choir ending and starting here because it sort of falls open. There's a stub, which means there's a single leaf that's been inserted here. So this is helping us see the structure of the book, which is going to be a little bit important when we start looking at where the hands change, where one scribe changes to another scribe. So I'm going to just, oh, and I also wanted to point out that, not on this, there are page numbers at the top that are not, I think, contemporary with I think they were added later, but they weren't added too much later, and they are Roman numerals. And then there's also modern numbering added at the bottom that someone added much more recently. Okay, so here we have, this is interesting. This is where we get the mass for the feast of Thomas Becket. So Thomas Becket is down here, why I don't know enough to know why he would be included in a gradual made in around this time in this part of the world, but I think that's interesting if that is correct, and that's what it is. There's also a little pretty some decoration here, and I don't know what's going on there. I don't even know if it's been added or if it's original. It's sort of an interesting looking little thing here. Some more color, lots of green and yellow, and a little face right here, which is rather nice. More of this yellow. There's a lot of sort of yellow. It's not really gold, but it's yellowish red, and then the green. Here we go. So here is another sort of, for this manuscript, a rather fine initial. There is here and also elsewhere where you'll see a lot of things that have been added, also things that have been changed. It's clear that this book was used wherever it was. It was used over a long period of time, and so people felt comfortable making sort of changes to it. This I marked here because this is where we get the masses for Saints Albinus and Ingenians, I think his name is, and these are local saints. So these are saints that we're going to expect to be seen here because they are they're local to the area where this manuscript was written. And then here we have the I believe it's over on this side. We have the Mass to Saint Benedict. So Saint Benedict, you would expect to see that a Benedictine monastery. I think this sort of potentially points to it being a Benedictine monastery because we're talking about Benedict. So we'll go through here, and here is where we move from scribe 1 to scribe 2. There's a number down here at the bottom, so we can see that scribe 2 takes over in a new choir. So now we can start thinking about, okay, how is this book planned and how is it made? It picks up in the middle of a mass. So this, as far as I know, this goes directly here, even though a new scribe is writing, which indicates, I think, that there was a plan and the scribes knew what they were going to be doing. So they were in fact writing at the same time. And it was pretty well planned. It's also a little interesting because the script and particularly the musical notation is slightly different. So the first scribe, what did I say, is writing in an Italian Gothic script and using square notation, while the second scribe, and actually also the third and the fourth scribes, are writing in something called Hufnagelschrift notation, which indicates, okay, if you're going to, there's a note in the chat from Sheila, and I'll say it looks as though the piece about Saint Benedict was added later. If so, then the manuscript didn't start in a Benedictine monastery. That's possible. If you can just, if you do chat, unless you want to say something that's obviously private, make sure that you reply to everybody, because then everybody could see it. So I don't know. That's possible that it was added later, and it didn't start in a monastery. Yeah, I think I just don't know very much about it. All right. So, and also the musical notation is noticeably different. It looks, even to my eye, which is not super trained on early music, it's different. And the script is apparently also slightly different. It's more of a South German, mixed Italian, at least the record says mixed Italian / South German Gothic script. So the script is also a different, slightly different script. It's still a Gothic script, but it is not exactly the same kind of script. So it's a different hand, implying perhaps that one of the scribes was from further south and the other scribes were from further north. All right. Also, just because I love this, I want to point out that this is not really great parchment. There are a lot of what we call offcuts here. So they were not being precious about having totally rectangular parchment here. So here's another example. A lot of this, and there are also a lot of examples of parchment that has been, well, here's an example where there's been mending. So it looks almost like this was cut at some point, and then this other parchment piece was added on, and you can see it even more here because it was actually pasted on this side, and then somebody came through and added this, although this does not look particularly later to me. It doesn't look like it would be a whole lot later. And here are more of these offcuts, and I'm betting that this is the other side of the choir. So we saw the off prints on this side, and what we're seeing here is these. So this is the same sheet as that there. So that's sort of interesting. All right, but I'll keep moving on because eventually, so we're still in the masses. The masses take up the first, I think it's at 133 leaves in the choir. So here's some more of these mending. So we have a sheet that's been pasted here and also has been sewn up here, which is interesting. Sometimes, a lot of times actually, when you see mends like this, it means that there was mending that was done while the parchment was being made. But this is clearly ripped later after the book was made, and somebody sewed it up with this fine red thread. I don't know if it's actually fine, but I like it. All right, so here's where we move from scribe 2 to scribe 3. We're still in the middle of, or I guess we're getting towards the end of the mass section. But we've already switched from scribe 2 to scribe 3. There's a number here at the bottom of the page. So again, we're starting at a new choir here. Scribe 3 actually has quite a lot to do. So the first 2 scribes had about 50 pages each. And then scribe 3 has many, many more. Here, we've got lots of added things here, added bits. And yeah, I just think it's so neat, and some holes in the parchment. And here we have here the translation of Saint Albinus. I'm saying his name wrong. Albuinus. I've never heard of that saint before. But all right. And so again, he's a local saint. So we could expect to see his translation. The Feast of Translation is when a saint's body was moved from one place to another. So usually moved from wherever it was buried into a church where it was kept as a relic. So that's the Feast of the Translation is celebrating whenever that happened to this saint. So we've got another one of these funny little initials, another mend that's been done here, although there's another hole here that has not, oh, you know what? There's no thread, but there are little holes. So I think perhaps that was mended at some point, but the thread has been taken out. So maybe it was in the way. Another one of these little initials. How are we doing for time? Doing well. All right. More of this parchment. And here on this edge, this is what it looks like when you have, oh, and here in the middle of the page too, you can see here, that is what it looks like when parchment is mended during the parchment making process. So there was a hole there, and whoever was making the parchment sewed it up. And so you get these little holes that the scribes then have to work around. You can see it even better on this side, I think. But it's just the fact that this parchment was used just means that they weren't being particular about the parchment that they included. So here we have the translation of Saint Benedict, and I had to look for him. Where is he? He's up here somewhere. I saw his name. It's a little bit difficult to see because this writing is quite small. I think it's here. Here we have Saint Benedict, and this looks original to me. This writing. So I think that this was written when originally, I think maybe this was added later, this part at the bottom. All right. And more of this yellow decoration. All right. And then here we have Saint Cassian is mentioned over here. And Saint Cassian, I believe, was important for let me see when I find it. Cassian, I don't know if any of you were watching Andor, but every time I say Cassian, I'm thinking of Cassian Andor, which is not the right person. Oh, he is the legendary founder of the Diocese of Brixen. And that's the diocese where this manuscript was made. So that's just his inclusion is another reason why we believe that that's where it was made. All right, so, but we're still in the masses. This is all masses for all these things. But then finally here, we come to the common of saints. And so this is another set of prayers for saints, and that starts over here. There's not, unlike at the very beginning, there's not a great fancy initial. It's just sort of a soft start. And this is still here. These holes weren't even fixed. They were just sort of left there. This is still the third scribe, still the third scribe. The next section here is the Kyrie, the Gloria, Sanctus, and Agnus Dei. So Kyrie, 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 and then Gloria, Gloria, different settings. So the same prayer set to different music, just depending on what you want. So that's what that section is. This, I like this. So here we have the start of the sequences for the major feasts, beginning with Christmas. And we start with this fantastic little dragon there. I don't know what the dragon has to do with Christmas. And there's also a little guy a little bit further down, which is also very nice. And interesting, I just noticed this, that for some reason there's no music. There's music here. Here, let me move this up here. But the music was left out here at the very top. And considering how long this book was used, I do think it's sort of interesting that nobody ever added it, because that's the kind of thing that you would see, you would expect people to add. So it's sort of fun that it's not. Yes, a Christmas dragon. He's got Christmas colors. I don't know if at this point people thought of red and green as being Christmas colors. That would be interesting to know. And here is, again, we have Albinus and the other one who are the local saints. So here is where they're mentioned again. This is all still apparently the third scribe. So this is a little bit less. No, that looks different to me, but I don't know. But then we get to scribe 4. Here we have scribe 4. He starts over here. And he is also, again, using this Hufnagelschrift notation, and has the sort of further, more northern Gothic script. But interestingly, unlike where the other scribes change hands in the middle of choirs, this scribe apparently picks up on the verso of a page, so on the back of a page, and also in the middle of a choir. So it's actually on the second leaf in the choir, which may imply that this was not a planned transition, that maybe scribe 3 was supposed to complete it and something happened, and so someone else had to come and pick up and finish, because there's really only a few leaves left to go. And he just finished out the end of it. And then we get to the end, and again we've got some sort of interesting things happening here. We have the end of the section, and then this leaf where there were some chants that were added later, and the front flyleaf that I showed at the very beginning, we'll just remind you here, this is actually, I don't know if it was originally conjoined with the leaf, but it goes along with this one. So at some point, somebody took a leaf from back here and moved it to the front. And then we have this paste down here. Bran is asking about the dragon, and I can, let me see, I can give you the folio number. It was at the start of the sequences for major feasts, which starts on 146 verso. Thank you, Amy. Amy has it too. Yeah, so that's where that you can find that. And then this paste down, which was added, I think that's 13th century. So this is actually early. So we have 13th century, 14th century, a little bit of 15th century on the front flyleaf, a really easily localized manuscript that shows just influence, this really interesting German, Italian, and a lot of use and interesting parchment if you're into parchment. So it's past time. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them, or I can let you go. And I hope you'll come back again next week.